welcome back. You're watching Outside. This is White Mountains Today. Chris Proulx in the North Conway studio with Steve Angers of the North Country Angler Fly Shop here in North Conway. He is also a member of the Saco Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited. He is the VP of Conservation for the State Council. And also, he's a published author. He's written Fly Fishing New Hampshire's Secret Waters. So if you haven't guessed, we're going to be talking fishing for the next few minutes. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that I'm sure you get all the time. In fact, that's why we brought you in here. I want to know what are the most popular questions that you get asked in your fly shop. We'll start with, obviously you run a fly shop, so people must want to know what flies are working, right?
Oh, exactly. That's the number one question that we get asked at the North Country Angler, and the way that we deal with that is we have clothespins that say hot fly, and we have thousands and thousands of flies, but we put the clothespin for the hot fly that's working. Like right now, it's all red quills all the time. Okay. And so people can walk into the shop, check out the clothespins, and they know exactly what they need for a successful day on the water.
Does it really matter? Because you guys have probably hundreds, if not thousands, of flies in your shop. If you said a red quill is working well right now, is that going to change in the next week or two or next month?
Believe it or not, it does. Yep, we have hatches here in the valley. The next hatch coming up is the gray drake hatch. And then there's another mayfly called the Miris. That'll be next. And then there's a stonefly called the yellow Sally. That'll be next. And there's a regular progression throughout the summer of different flies that work, which of course is why we have the clothespins, so we can move them around our fly selection for the anglers.
Right. So the fish are smart. They're only going to try to eat whatever's on the menu for that time of year.
Exactly, and it doesn't take long on the Saco for them to get dialed into exactly what they're interested in. And probably the second most frequently asked question I get is, how come the fly I'm using's not working?
And there must be, okay, so sometimes they might have the wrong fly, but also technique, I would imagine, is important, right? You've got to present the fly in a way that is natural looking.
Right. And the bugs go through a certain stage. When they're crawling on the bottom of the river, it's called a nymph. When they're swimming up through the water to hatch, to actually spread their wings and mate, that's called an emerger. And then when they actually get on the surface of the water and spread their wings to dry out to fly, that's the dun. So a lot of what happens is people will be fishing the dun that's on top of the water, when actually the fish are taking the emerger before it breaks through the surface. Right. So it can get very frustrating for anglers if they don't know the difference between the two.
And they're just not in tune to the current state of the cycle, I guess, of the insect's life cycle. So I imagine one of the, if not the most popular question you get, it's got to be up there, is, okay, so I have the fly, have the equipment that I need. Okay, where do I actually find the fish? Where should I go fishing? And that seems to be a pretty broad question.
Right. I mean, we have miles and miles and miles of stream to fish, and we also have variety. So on our stocked waters, the Saco and the Ellis, New Hampshire Fish and Game stocks brook trout, rainbow trout, and brown trout. So if one of those particular trout is what you like to fish for, then we can send you to those areas. But in all of our headwater streams are wild native brook trout. And throughout the pandemic, and with a lot of the younger people getting interested in angling, they're interested in the wild native fish. So yes, we need to find out what the angler is interested in pursuing. And then, for years now, almost since the very beginning of the shop, we've had the North Country Angler fishing map. And we provide that to any angler who comes into the shop. And once we know what it is that they want to pursue, we can highlight some spots on the map and send them on their way.
That's good. I want to touch base again on the wild natives, because a lot of people, when you ask them, what do you want to catch? I'm sure they just say, I just want the biggest fish I can find. Wild natives don't tend to be the biggest fish you can find. So what's the allure? Why do you enjoy finding these small fish in these backcountry streams?
Well, I think it's because, when fish are being planted, it takes a lot of the adventure out of it.
So stockfish you're talking
Stock
about.
fish,
Yep.
You go right over to First Bridge, the stocking truck pulls up on top of the bridge,
Yep.
puts the pipe out and lets the fish go, and the fish are there.
It's kind of like an aquarium for an amount of time.
Right, or fishing at a fish farm.
Yeah.
But for those people that just want to catch a big trout or catch a bunch of trout, that's perfect for them.
Yep.
But now that we're becoming more ecologically aware, there's been this focus on wild native trout that are, born in the headwater streams that haven't been artificially fed. And even though those fish don't get to be big, there's a lot of them. So people are trading size for quality, quantity.
Right. So obviously that is one option. Explore the streams. Sometimes that can be a little bit adventurous. You've written a whole book on where to find the secret waters of the White Mountains. But what about for someone who has a young child, maybe isn't in the mood for an adventurous day, and just wants to go somewhere to introduce his or her child to the sport? Any recommendations?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So the North Country Angler, we're in partnership with the town of Jackson. And they have a small pond in the center of town that we put brook trout in there for the kids, and that's for 12 and under. The state, in Fish and Game in cooperation with state parks, also stocks the Willie House Pond up in Crawford Notch, and that's an easy place to take your child to catch trout. But if you just want to catch fish and your child doesn't matter, we have Echo Lake State Park. Absolutely fantastic trail all around the lake.
Yep.
Get your bobber, get your earthworms or your night crawlers, and you can catch sunfish, yellow perch, bass, and see that smile on your child's face when they're reeling in a fish.
There's nothing like that expression when a child catches his or her first fish. So how about waders? We know fly fishermen like to look the part, from the vest to the waders. Do you actually need waders when you go out into our streams and rivers?
You don't need them. I mean, in the springtime or right now, this season, our waters have stayed colder because we have the extended snowpack up on Mount Washington. So having waders helps you stay warmer in the water. But very shortly here, as the river gets up into the 60-degree range, people will wet wade.
Yeah.
And that's just a pair of wading sandals, a pair of shorts or quick dry long pants. And so no, it's not absolutely necessary for you to fish here in the valley.
It depends on probably the time of year. But I will say it also depends maybe on how long you want to be out, because we've all been in even like swimming pools where after a while you get cold. There's only so much your body can take. And that can obviously happen a lot quicker in a stream, even if it's 60, even 70 degrees.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's happening is, again, and this has to do with the pursuit of the wild brook trout, the ponds that are in the White Mountain National Forest all have wild brook trout in them, but the only way you can fish for them is in a float tube.
Yep.
Because you're hiking way in. You can't carry a canoe or a kayak 3 and 4 miles into the woods. So waders are a must if you're going to float tube remote ponds. Otherwise, the leeches are going to find you.
Yes, I still remember we were talking about Greeley Ponds off camera. I remember my first hike into Greeley Ponds, and there's like just white sand along one of the edges. I took my shoes off, went barefoot in there, was just enjoying the nice cold water. Then you see these little black squirmy things coming up towards you. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. But the fish love to eat those. So.
Oh, they do. So that's when you get your black woolly bugger or your black humongous out and start dragging it along the bottom of the pond.
All right. So much good information. We're talking with Steve Angers, local fishing expert. Before we let you go, I want to talk about your vest.
Okay.
Because I know, a vest is obviously a convenient thing to have when you're on the water, store all your supplies. What does an expert like you keep in his vest?
Well, flies, obviously, lots of flies. Every one of my pockets here has a box of flies. So, fly anglers can never have too many flies.
Yep.
But as the size of the flies change, you have to change the end of your leader to match the size fly. And so spools of tippet are mandatory for doing that. And you talked about frequently asked questions. One of the frequently asked questions we get at the shop is, what size tippet should I use? And the rule of thumb there is to take the size hook you're fishing and divide by 3.
Okay.
So right now we're fishing a lot of size 12 flies, so that's 4X tippet.
Okay.
Okay. If in the spring when we're fishing the bigger streamers, we're using 3X tippet.
Yep.
And that's the rule of thumb. As the hatches start and the dry fly fishing starts, when your flies get wet, they tend to sink, but you want them to stay on top of the water, so floatant is another thing that you have in your vest.
Is that just a spray-on?
Well, this bottom one here is actually gel,
Yep.
and you put that on before the fly even hits the water, and then after you've caught 2 or 3 fish, to rejuvenate it, this is a silica dust. And you can put the fly in there, shake it, and it rejuvenates the gel that you put on so that you can get some more drag-free floats to catch your fish.
Wow.
So we also have forceps.
Yep.
That helps you take the hooks. That helps you take the hooks out of the fish's mouth. And of course, more and more flies now are tied on barbless hooks. So this is kind of going the way of the buggy whip as far as an accessory that you need. But
because the barbless ones come out much more easily.
Right, the barbless hooks will just pop right out. Yep. You don't need to go in and, like you said, do a little surgery.
Yep.
And when you tie the flies on, you always have a tag end
Yep.
of tippet, and you have to snip that tippet off. These are called nippers, and what attaches them to your vest is called a zinger. And this is and it just keeps everything. I like a vest because I learned how to do the clock system.
Yes.
I know there's dry flies over here, my wet flies are over here, tippet, dry, replacement leaders, and all of that. So, but there's all kinds of ways to go. There's front packs, there's back packs, there's sling packs, and it's all a matter of personal preference. If you're not sure what's going to work best for you, we have them all at the North Country Angler. Come in, try them on, and we'll make sure that you get what's comfortable for you.
And of course, one of the problems when you're fly fishing, it's good because fish love to eat insects, but insects like to eat people sometimes.
Oh, so funny you should say that,
do you have any remedy
Chris,
for black flies or mosquitoes? Or?
Right there. I don't know if we can get a close-up shot of that, but the old White Mountain insect repellent. It's all natural. The base is cedar oil, but it's got some other natural oils in it, and the bugs will not land on you. The aromatic from the cedar oil, they're still going to fly around your head, but they won't come in, They won't land on you. And this will be the best $7.50 you spend if you're going to be out on the water in June.
All right, there you go. Steve, we could talk about fishing all day. It's something that you learn over the course of a lifetime, so there's no way we're going to touch on everything in the short amount of time we have. But thank you so much for coming. We'll have to get you on another time.
Oh, I really appreciate you having me. And folks, it's a lot of fun. Come on up to the valley and stop by the shop, and we'll make sure you have a good day on the water.
All right, thanks for joining us. You're watching Outside.